What's up YouTube? Welcome back to another video here on the Museum Reviews channel. Today, we are beginning our multi-part series looking at the permanent collection of the Norton Simon Museum in Pasadena, California. In this video, we will be looking at the top 40 19th century paintings at the Norton Simon. As always, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, let's get on to the video. Honorable mention, Synchrony in Yellow, was painted by French painter Paul Séruzia between 1900 and 1915. The view depicted in the painting, showing lush greenery and 3 cows, is most likely what Séruzia would have seen outside his window from the home he built in the little-known city of Châteauneuf-du-Fayot. Séruzia's use of vibrant colors paved the way for abstraction in the 20th century. Number 40, Tahitian Woman and Boy, was painted by French painter Paul Gogh in 1899. In 1891, Gogh, a former stockbroker and self-taught artist, left his family and lavish life in France and set sail to the French colony of Tahiti. The years he spent there were perhaps some of his most important, as he drew inspiration from the tropical surroundings and island models for many of his paintings, such as this one. Number 39, The Pitch Pine Room, was painted by French painter Édouard Vuillard in 1910. The little girl depicted in the painting wearing red was Denise Nathanson. The Nathanson family were Vuillard's first patrons and close friends of his. Seated across from the little girl was her companion, Marcel Aaron, who also belonged to a family with ties to Vuillard. Number 38, The Stonebreakers, Les Rainchi, was painted by French painter Georges Pierre Seurat in 1882. This study is one of 8 paintings that Seurat devoted to the punishing labor of stonebreakers. Seurat's signature sly, fully on display in this piece, consisted of tiny dabs of contrasting color, which knitted together to create a vibrant and continuous image. Number 37, Still Life, was painted by Dutch painter Vincent van Gogh in 1884. This painting was finished by Van Gogh after he reluctantly moved in with his parents who dreaded him. In this piece, Van Gogh struggles to capture the form of vessels before him. At the same time, his style is seen to be influenced by the angular contours which were prominent in Japanese prints. Number 36, Clifford et Tretot, The Porte d'Arvol, was painted by French painter Gustave Courbet in 1869. After the extension of the railway line from Paris via Le Havre, many painters and writers flocked to the tiny fishing village of Etretat in the 1850s. None, however, captured the crumbled cliff faces and frothy sea more effectively than Courbet, who spent 5 weeks in an Etretat cottage during the fall of 1869. Number 35, View of Bonneval, was painted by French painter Camille Pissarro in 1900. Pissarro visited Bonneval, a middle-class resort town in Normandy, towards the end of his career. He depicts the town in this painting with a lush hillside and garden gate to the left. However, the broader landscape and distant cliffs to the right are a somewhat flat and forbidding prospect. Number 34, Tulips in a Vase, was painted by French painter Paul Cézanne between 1888 and 1890. Although Cézanne began painting flowers frequently in 1870 under the influence of Pissarro, he very rarely painted tulips like in this piece. However, Cézanne's work was known for his glowing depictions of fruits, such as those gathered to the left of the table here. Number 33, Bouquet of Lilacs, was painted by French painter Pierre-Auguste Renoir between 1875 and 1880. Renoir's selection of a cool, dark background to offset the warmth and brilliancy of the spring bouquet reflects his admiration for 18th century French flower paintings, which came back into fashion in the 1870s. This specific painting was not meant for public exhibition, but instead for domestic display. Number 32, Head of a Peasant Woman in a White Bonnet, was painted by Vincent van Gogh in 1885. In 1882, Van Gogh, fueled by his revolutionary politics, set out to paint a series of 50 heads of people. This painting, depicting his neighbor Scene de Groot, was just one painting from this series. The portrait also served as a study for one of Van Gogh's most celebrated paintings, titled The Potato Eaters. Number 31, The Boulevard des Fosses, Pontoise, was painted by Camille Pissarro in 1872. During Pissarro's first autumn back in the town of Pontoise, he was the most productive in all of his career as he painted 27 views of the town and its environs. In this piece, Pissarro, with remarkable concision, depicts the newly built boulevard along with its sidewalk and gutters filled with fallen leaves. Number 30, At the Cirque Fernando, Rider on a White Horse, was painted by French painter Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec between 1887 and 1888. The painting depicts an entertainment scene from the Cirque Fernando in Montmartre, which was one of Lautrec's favorite places to visit. The woman, an equestrian performer at the circus, rides a white horse as spectators view from their seats. Number 29, Young Woman in Black, was painted by Pierre-Auguste Renoir between 1875 and 1877. Although the woman in the painting remains unknown, she embodies Renoir's ideal Parisienne, who was young, pretty, and dressed. During the mid-1870s, Renoir produced many small-scale studies, such as this one, which he often gave away to his friends. Number 28, Woman Combing Her Hair Before a Mirror, was painted by French painter Edgar Degas between 1870 and 1875. During the 1870s, Degas was particularly fascinated with the theme of women combing their hair, and this piece was just one of many works he did depicting the topic. This painting is interesting because it was painted on top of an earlier portrait. The ear of the prior painting can be seen on the figure's waist. Number 27, Portrait of the Artist's Mother, was painted by Vincent van Gogh in 1888. After receiving a photograph of his mother from his sister while living in Paris, Van Gogh set out to make a painting after it. Although Van Gogh hoped to enliven his mother's face with color, the end result was instead a somewhat pale and sickly tone. Van Gogh confessed later that he was dissatisfied with this portrait. Number 26, Rebecca at the Well, was painted by French painter Jean-Baptiste Camille Corot between 1838 and 1839. In this painting, Corot depicts the biblical scene from the book of Genesis, in which Abraham's servant, Eliezer, is sent out to find a bride for his son. Eliezer finds Rebecca, who draws water for him and all his camels from the well. Rebecca is recognized for her kindness and is deemed to be a suitable bride for Isaac. Number 25, Unique Dominique, was painted by Paul Cézanne in 1866, while staying with his family outside Aix-en-Provence in late 1866. Cézanne painted 9 portraits of his maternal uncle Antoine Dominique Sauve-Robert. In this piece, Cézanne favored a tougher style, but he worked quickly with a brush and palette knife, almost as though he were working with cement. Number 24, First Fruits, was painted by Édouard Vuillard in 1899. At 14 feet in width, this painting is the largest canvas Vuillard ever painted. Most likely, Vuillard sketched its composition from the window of a villa outside of Paris, where he eventually passed in the summer of 1899. The scene depicts an array of flowering plants and the pleasures of a family holiday in the countryside. Number 23. The Seine at Charenton was painted by French painter Jean-Baptiste Armand Guillaumin in 1874. The landscape depicts the view of a Parisian suburb, in which factories belch smoke into the bright sky. Guillaumin, who was poor and worked at first as a ditch digger and day labourer, often had a unique perspective of modern Paris, depicting not its glamorous centre, but its rough industrial suburbs. Number 22, In a Villa at the Seaside, was painted by French painter Berthe Morisot in 1874. Morisot was the only woman to contribute to the first exhibition of the Impressionist group, a spring of 1874. This piece was painted during a joint vacation between the Morisot and Monet families on the Normandy coast. Most likely, the models, looking out to the beach, were her sister Edma and Edma's daughter. Number 21, Landscape with Flock of Sheep, was painted by Camille Pissarro in 1889. In a vast field, under a thickly painted sky, Pissarro depicts a shepherd gathering his flock before a storm. Some have interpreted this painting to be a display of Pissarro's radical left-wing politics and a call for solidarity among the rural working class. Number 20, Dancers in Pink, was painted by Edgar Degas in 1886. This piece is pure pastel and depicts the corps de ballet dancers in matching costumes. Although these women might at first seem caught unawares, their elegant artifice reminds us that this is a performance staged for our enjoyment. Number 19, Dancers in the Rotunda at the Paris Opera, was painted by Edgar Degas between 1875 and 1878. The painting depicts a view of the main rehearsal studio at the Paris Opera House, also called the Palais Garnier. Degas used thin dabs of colour, often applied by finger rather than brush, to create the dreamy effect of the dancers. Number 18, Dancers in the Wings, was painted by Edgar Degas between 1876 and 1878. This piece is considered to be one of the most sophisticated works painted by Degas. It appears that Degas began the composition with the dancer in the pink and added strips of paper around the edges to make room for her companion, who is dressed in a butterfly costume. Number 17, Madame Monet, was painted by French painter Édouard Monet between 1874 and 1876. The portrait depicts Monet's wife, Suzanne Leenhoff, who he met in 1850, as she was a piano teacher who frequently visited his family's house. Suzanne served as a model for Monet for many paintings, such as this one in which he captured her quiet beauty and even temper. Number 16, Peasant Girl with a Scarf, was painted by Gustave Courbet in 1849. The painting depicts a peasant girl, flushed with sun, in an uncomfortable close-up. A man is also seen retreating into the distant shadows. As a result, the scene shows a rather awkward relationship between the figure and the landscape, which off-put many Parisian viewers at the time. Number 15. The Streetwalker was painted by Henry de Toulouse-Lautrec between 1892 and 1894. Although Lautrec was born into an aristocratic family in the south of France, he was particularly interested in painting the everyday lives of working people in Montmartre with unusual sympathy and insight. This included some of the lowest class workers, called streetwalkers. Number 14. Women Ironing was painted by Edgar Degas between 1875 and 1876. Once a domestic chore, laundry became a big business in 19th century Paris and employed roughly 25% of the female workforce. These women, as Degas depicts, worked in steamy and dark storefronts, which were often open to the sidewalk. The women in this painting hunch, yawn, and drink over a pile of starched shirts, highlighting the difficulty of the job. Number 13. The entrance to the port of Le Havre was painted by French painter Claude Monet between 1867 to 1868. The scene was lightly painted when Monet went to visit his family at Le Havre, the Normandy port town where he had grown up. Depicted in the piece is an array of sailboats in the sea, and a lighthouse seen to the right of the canvas. Number 12. The Pont des Arts, Paris, was painted by Pierre-Auguste Renoir between 1867 and 1868. The painting depicts the left bank of the Seine River and looks upstream toward the wrought iron Pont des Arts. A ferry pulls up to the quayside and is crowded with commuters and idlers from all walks of life. The crisp shadows seen in this piece were typical of Renoir's style in his early career. Number 11. Winter the Vicarage Garden Under Snow was painted by Vincent van Gogh in 1885. In this painting, Van Gogh depicts the vicarage garden and a lone figure clearing a path. Some have speculated as to whether this man was simply shoveling snow, or perhaps digging a grave. The surrounding trees are bare, and the landscape is unremittingly bleak. Number 10. Mouth of the Seine at Honfleur was painted by Claude Monet, 1865. The painting depicts a view from across the harbour at Honfleur, a town on the Normandy coast where the Seine River empties into the English Channel. The sails of fishing boats swell with the wind as ominous clouds roll across the sky. Number 9. Stream of the Puits-Moir at Ornans was painted by Gustave Courbet between 1867 and 1868. Most likely, Courbet worked on this canvas during a fall 1868 visit to his birthplace at Ornans in the far eastern reaches of France. The painting depicts a stretch of the River Breme a little more than 2 miles from Ornans itself. The picture is thickly painted and has a rough form given its rocky subject. Number 8. A Renoir's home, Rue St. George's, was painted by Pierre-Auguste Renoir in 1876. The portrait depicts an informal gathering of friends and colleagues at Renoir's home in Montmartre. The bald-bearded man partially hidden to the right is Camille Pissarro, another member of the Impressionist group. The central figure leading the discussion was Georges Rivière, an early critic and biographer of Renoir. The other 3 men were painters, writers, and philosophers. Number 7. Autumn, the Chestnut Gatherers, was painted by French painter Georges Locombe in 1894. This large canvas was meant to represent autumn for the home of the artist's mother-in-law. The repeating pattern of fallen chestnuts and golden leaves creates an almost musical rhythm, complemented by the dance-like movements of the gatherers, arranged in a graceful frieze. Number 6. L'Ochogle the Grasshopper was painted by Jean-Baptiste Camille Corot between 1865 and 1875. Portraits depicting women holding musical instruments and title La Cigale were common in late 19th century France. The title of the painting alludes to La Fontaine's fable, The Grasshopper and the Ant, in which the grasshopper sings all summer instead of preparing for the hardships of winter like the ant. Number 5. Red-Headed Woman in the Garden of Fort was painted by Henry de Toulouse-Lautrec in 1887. This painting belongs to a small group Toulouse-Lautrec painted outdoors in the garden of a friend during the summer of 1887. The woman in the painting, Carmen Godin, was one of Lautrec's favorite models. Her flaming hair and pale, sharp features appear in many of his works from the late 1880s. Number 4. The Artist's Garden at Vetheuil was painted by Claude Monet, 1881. This large canvas depicts the view of a path, shaded by some flowers and dotted with nasturtiums, and likely served as a preparatory sketch for an even larger version, currently on display at the National Gallery of Art in DC. The piece depicts the freedom and spontaneity of a work painted quickly in the outdoors. Number 3. The Mulberry Tree was painted by Vincent van Gogh in 1889. After a series of mental and physical health breakdowns, Van Gogh committed himself to an asylum at Saint-Rémy-de-Provence. In the asylum, Van Gogh painted this piece depicting the flaming foliage of a mulberry tree and a rushing sky and hillside in the distance. Van Gogh was particularly pleased with this painting, and he considered it to be his most successful treatment of its theme. Number 2. The Ragpicker was painted by Edouard Monet between 1865 and 1870. The painting represents one of the practitioners of a now obsolete profession that involves sifting through the detritus of daily life, including rags, scraps, soap, and other cast-offs, which were left to trash collectors. Although the job sounded terrible on face value, rag pickers were a discreet social type and were seen as free from the restrictions of a traditional bourgeois lifestyle. Number 2. Portrait of a Peasant Patience Escalier was painted by Van Gogh in 1888. The portrait depicts a sunburnt and weather-beaten peasant who gazes at the viewer with blazing intensity. Dazzling yellow, vivid blue, green, and red colors make this portrait perhaps Van Gogh's most coloristic experiment to date. This piece is considered to be the most prominent and famous work in the entire Norton Simon Museum collection. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe, or comment what your favorite painting was. Stay tuned for future episodes as we continue to look at the collection of the Norton Simon Museum. See you in the next one.